thanks for inviting me to the meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. A lot of my work stemmed from my, love of housing, but certainly my love of Marin, and hoping to create additional housing options that allow people from various financial situations to actually have a place to live in Marin, because it's a divine place and we want to make sure it's a diverse community. Anyway, so as Eric was saying, I'm a licensed general contractor. I'm also a LEED accredited residential designer, and I'm the senior construction project manager for the HelloADU program, which is a program of the nonprofit Hello Housing. So Hello Housing has several programs that it does. It has AC Boost, which is a down payment assistance program. It has a below market rate housing program, and down payment assistance, I mentioned that. And so they have created a collection of programs to create missing middle housing in creative ways, typically using infill opportunities. So anyway, HelloADU is their most recent program, and we got started about 5 years ago on creating ADU technical assistance programs, generally working with jurisdictions. So we've worked with many jurisdictions throughout the Bay Area. And as of last year, the beginning of last year, we had a pilot program in Marin to provide technical assistance to a small group of individuals and help them get through the design, the feasibility, design, and permitting process, but not construction. But we actually offer a full suite of services, not through the county anymore, but on a fee-for-service basis to help people get through projects, because as we all know, building a home is a very complicated thing to do, and having somebody to hold your hand, particularly at key moments to get through successfully, can be very helpful and very valuable. So anyway, so getting into the history of ADUs specifically in 2017, sweeping legislation passed, right? As of, the past, almost 60, 70 years prior to that, we had single family zoning. And as of 2017, the single family home, as we knew it in California, was no longer. There was sweeping legislation around homeowners' ability to create ADUs. And there was also another bill that actually my nonprofit sponsored, my nonprofit at the time, Lily Pad Homes, and that was for a type of unit called a Junior Accessory Dwelling Unit, which we will talk more about. Anyway, between those two laws that passed, Californians suddenly were able to build up to 2 additional units on a single family property. And junior units were not a mandate in the beginning, but ADUs were. So right now, across the board, anyone in California can build the 800 square foot exempt ADU, right? And so that has just changed the landscape forever in California, and we're seeing states around the country start adopting our rules, as California, typically tends to lead on progressive solutions, and in this case, housing. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit. Let's talk specifically about what, given the state laws that have passed. And so 2017 was the start, but every year there are more laws that pass that open up more doors and figure out new solutions to help people take advantage of this opportunity. So now, again, across California, everyone has the opportunity to build at least an 800 square foot ADU in some configuration in their property, which we'll talk about, or the opportunity to create a junior accessory dwelling unit. So first, let's talk about the different types of an ADU. So an ADU comes in basically 3 configurations. Just find my notes, sorry. I outline them. Anyway, I know them by heart, but anyway, so one of the configurations is a conversion unit. And a conversion unit is either taking existing living space or existing non-living space within a built shell and converting that to an ADU. The next kind of ADU is an addition, right? So you build onto your house, and you can build at a minimum up to an 800 square foot addition that would be an ADU. And just know some of these strategies could be combined. In other words, you can convert part of your house to create this ADU and build an addition to create the overall space. And there are specific rules around doing that based on your jurisdiction. You can also build a freestanding ADU. Again, a minimum, you can make it small. So an ADU, believe it or not, a living unit can be as small as 150 square feet. It's kind of amusing. That would be a very small living unit. But according to the state, you can at least build an 800 square foot ADU. And depending on various attributes of your home and your lot, you could build possibly larger than that. That's getting into more of the specifics. So now a junior unit is a type of conversion unit, but a junior unit can be made from converting part of the existing living space in your home, but not from the original legislation, but in subsequent legislation, they also made it possible for people to convert garages and make them a junior unit. So what makes a junior unit different than an ADU? So the idea, the spirit of the law, if you will, behind junior units was to create flexible in-law apartments that use existing living space, particularly repurposing bedrooms, like involving at least one bedroom, to allow people to build an ADU without having any other consequence on their utility use or their septic use. So in other words, or to give it a little history rather, we are in the middle of a housing crisis, and we are also chronically overhoused, right? So there are a lot of people who are living in very large homes that are mostly empty. So how do you repurpose part of your living space to allow for a small unit, a small flexible unit in this case, that could bring in income, allow you to house family, allow you to have a caregiver, and not have any real impact on your utility demands, right? All the parking, all the utility use for these units have already been covered under your original permit. So that was the spirit behind junior units starting out. The idea was that and to this day, they can only be up to 500 square feet. They are not considered a separate unit when it comes to fire and other utility usage. There is no firewall that needs to separate a junior unit from an ADU. You can share central systems, and not all, but in many jurisdictions, they are only allowed to have what is technically called an efficiency kitchen. And that means typically it's, I have to talk in generalizations because jurisdictions have the ability to manipulate the rules to a degree. So typically that's a sink and a refrigerator and then a series of outlets that you can have plug-in appliances, right? It's kind of like a European kitchen, if you will. Anyway, so that is how a junior unit, and junior units, one other thing is the idea is that they're flexible so that they can stay connected to the main living area by a door, right? But you could double up that door like you see in adjoining hotel suites. So it could be secured on both sides and you have a completely private unit, or it might be family. So you can, keep it just a door separating the units and you can go back and forth, but that person can live largely independently, right? Or actually completely independently if they want. anyway, and then if you want to incorporate this junior unit back in your house, you just, unlock the door, unplug the appliances, and voila, you just have a nice suite that happens to have a little wet bar in it. So the idea was to create flexible housing. And so that is the main difference between the main differences between junior units and ADUs. Because of this additional this change in the law, garages can now also be converted into a junior unit, because garages typically are somewhere between 200 and 400 square feet, sometimes a little bit bigger. It's a 1 or 2 car garage, right? So less than 500 square feet. What that inclusion complicated the rules around junior units. And so in your permitting documentation, you have to be very clear if you are doing a junior unit as an expansion of the livable area of your home. So anyway, so that's just important to note, because as you all well know, there are septic implications for that. So yeah, so I don't know how many people on this call are on septic systems, but I did want to just talk a little bit about septic systems and kind of draw from some notes that we created during the time we had a program there. But I just want to let you know the information, why I doubt it has changed that much, very substantially. It may have changed a little bit since our program came to a close. So I just want, to, be very transparent about that and let you know to use this as a general guideline, and that, anything you did, you would certainly want to check in with environmental services and make sure that you're taking the proper steps. Okay, so whenever you're making an ADU, in fact, doing anything, as you guys already know, to a home with a septic system, the first stop is environmental health, to see if there's going to be any implications on testing or anything, your septic system. So as far as opportunities surrounding septic requirements, and you guys might be somewhat familiar with the just verbiage around this, the rules around this, but I'm just going to give you a quick outline of what requires what. So hopefully this is helpful. So for junior ADUs, the opportunity to create a junior, using a existing bedroom, right? Convert, so it would at least include one existing bedroom and maybe some additional space, right? Again, has to be less than 500 square feet. If the door is already existing there, you're not talking about any external like remodel at all, right? You don't need to make a door or a deck or anything. This could be classified under minor maintenance and repairs, and an environmental health permit would not be needed. So if you wanted to do the same thing, but in this case, you did need to turn, say, a window into a door and build a deck, then because of that, it qualifies as a minor remodel, and it will require an environmental health services permit and an inspection report by a qualified provider. Now, I'm sure you guys are familiar enough with the environmental health services to know that there are a collection of people who the county can recommend, who've been pre-qualified, who are allowed to do the testing and everything that's needed. And so there's a list that they can provide you with of qualified providers. So then next up, creating a junior unit or an ADU out of habitable space within the existing residence as a bedroom swap. Now, this is not all jurisdictions allow for this, but in Marin County, one of the ways you could kind of work around the system a little to avoid having to upgrade your septic system is you could possibly swap out a bedroom to create a junior unit or an ADU, so a conversion unit. And when you do that, you have to convert the bedroom in a way that really brings it into the main living space so that it couldn't just be easily turned back into a bedroom. And if you were to do that and that the project affects less than 50% of your home, it will count as a minor remodel, again, requiring a septic permit and an inspection by a qualified provider. Now, creating an ADU using existing non-habitable space or by adding on less than 500 square feet, that can count as a minor expansion. And if it is done as a bedroom swap, it will therefore require a Class 2 system, assuming it does not exceed the allowable square footage per bedroom. Now, that's getting a little bit more technical, obviously. But one of the things I was going to do, and like, I don't know if you guys are like, taking mad notes, but I was going to follow up by sending these notes that that we created from the program. And so that you can have them in written form. And, I think Linda Nave was saying that they might be available after the presentation on your website or something like that. Anyway, so then on from there, creating a new ADU greater than 500 square feet will require a Class 1 system. So again, all of these, if you're looking at the possibility of doing one type or another of ADU, understanding the septic requirements and getting pricing around those septic requirements is going to be key to understanding the overall price of the project. Now, we give kind of a general ballpark figure for all-in construction right now in the Bay Area. I mean, obviously, this is like, completely rough numbers and may vary depending on, site complexities of the actual, structure you want to build, so many things. But we find that a lot of people have very unrealistic idea about what it costs to create an ADU in the Bay Area. And right now, the number, I'm gonna like just quote a number, but just know I'm basically talking about like generally speaking, additions or freestanding ADUs that, can vary again from being relatively small. I think the most like a realistic small ADU is more like 500 square feet. And a large one can be, according to the state, up to about 1,200 square feet. And we just want to ground people in a realistic number around that. And again, it's all in. And so we prepare people for $600 per square foot. And it is not lost on us that is, a pretty hearty number. But what we don't want is people to get into the weeds and then without realizing what the overall price point on a project like this could be. That does not include septic requirements. And just know in that super, ballpark number, that there are a lot of variables. And that if you build smaller, like a 400 square foot ADU, that price can go up. And if you build a larger ADU, say 1,200 square foot, that number can go down because of just the efficiencies that are involved after you've already mobilized a whole team to build a home, if that makes sense. Yeah, so anyway, so that's just some round numbers to ground you. And then as far as timeline, so it's just very interesting because ADUs have gotten a lot of press lately. And there's a lot of, as we all know, a lot of misinformation out on the internet. And so we not only like to ground people in realistic numbers, but also a realistic timeline. And so we're finding from like scratch to, turning the key in the door, people, and again, I'm talking about larger projects, right? Say an attached or detached ADU. You're looking at a timeline somewhere between one and 2 years. Yeah, so you should be prepared for a project to be up to 2 years. And of course, there are lots of variables that, depend on that as well. One is, just a homeowner's ability to make decisions quickly. Things can come up in families and all kinds of things can happen. Things can come up in permitting, it's a very busy building environment. And so just getting on busy people's queue, right, for, getting the work done. And all of these things. And then just, like starting a project in an appropriate time. Like you wouldn't want to start, a major ground up project right in the middle of the rainy season, right? So that could also delay things. So again, we see very unrealistic numbers being thrown out on the internet as far as costs and timelines. So I just wanted to, make you aware of that. But also, I wanted to make you aware of different modalities, different ways that you are probably hearing more and more about building ADUs. So ADUs can be like typical, it's been that way forever, ground up construction, classic construction, stick built. That's one possibility. We're also seeing panelization as another possibility that can add some efficiencies. There are all of these different modalities have their complications, if you will, complexities. And then, of course, we're hearing a lot about prefab construction as well. And so those are, three different options that people might want to look into. There are, again, complexities around each of them, and, and you just want to make sure you do your homework and get expert guidance, I would say. I just, on going down any of these paths. And, our most frustrating, moments are when, people have already signed on the dotted line before maybe getting some real key guidance about, what to do. And what HelloADU does is provide project management oversight, but we also provide a lot of tools to help people understand the decision-making process. And we have hands-on technical assistance. So I want to talk a little bit about the ADU environment as far as what resources are available to you now. And the County of Marin has actually recently signed on a contract with Napa Sonoma ADU Center, right? And so they, Scott Johnson is now is the CEO, and they are now working with the Marin ADU Center to provide some basic services to the county and the jurisdictions who have signed on. And those services include a lot of online information, right? They have a great comprehensive website, and they have resources on that website. They have a lot of webinars, and in the past, they've had some question and answer sessions that, people could sign into to ask specific questions. And they also will be providing a feasibility report. It's a remote feasibility report to let people know, based on what they know from the state laws and what they can glean from the internet, what the options are for a person's property. So it's a great service, and there's a new website that should be coming out soon, a new updated website. It's supposed to come out this quarter. And when I stop talking and somebody else starts talking, I'm going to drop a series of links into the chat so that you guys can go down some of these rabbit holes and, see for yourself what resources are available. And I'll put in links that will, drop you on key pages for information. Besides that, we have a couple of, wonderful resources in the state. One is the Casita Coalition. The Casita Coalition grew out of the Bay Area Council. They're the ones who passed sweeping legislation to create the whole ADU world. as far as building freestanding 800 square foot and other types of units, conversions, additions, and freestanding units. While at the same time, my nonprofit LilyPad was passing junior accessory dwelling units. Well, they spun off the Casita Coalition, which is a roundtable collection of professionals in the ADU space. They work on legislative initiatives, and they have a wealth of resources on their website to help guide you. In addition to that, we also have housing and community development at the state level. And they're also a wealth of information, and they're the ones who are overseeing the rules, the jurisdictional rules around accessory dwelling units. And when issues come up about, is a jurisdiction's code up to speed, or is there something that's being missed or not allowed underneath the state law, then HCD has the power to step in and help look at issues that come up on a jurisdictional basis. Anyway, they too have a wealth of resources on their website, including the 2022 ADU Handbook, which kind of is the quick guide to understanding your rights under the law. Let's see. With that, going back to local resources and what you now have available, which I'm so excited about through, it's the Marin ADU Center, but this partnership with the Napa Sonoma ADU Center. So we are actually one of the partners with Napa Sonoma ADU. And what we offer is kind of like the next step in their process. So they can provide you with the information you need. And again, tons of online guidance about, what the next steps are. But sometimes just some real hand holding is required to get people successfully through the process. So where they step off with this remote feasibility assessment, and they provide you with this report, that is where we step in from there if additional support is needed. So I'm going to share my screen and just go through a little presentation. So professional ADU supportive services, it gets me back to our, incredible team at HelloADU. And so together we have help for additional feasibility services through our team, right? Our president, the president of Hello Housing, happens to be also a licensed mortgage broker, and we help people look at the various financing options that you have to build ADUs, because that's obviously one of the first things that people look at. But we also have just a really wonderful team of architects, designers, and builders that can help guide you through the entire process. And so again, just there is a lot to know when it comes to building a home. It takes, many, many professional skills to successfully get through. And what we offer, so we have programs where jurisdictions hire us and provide homeowners basically 100 hours of project management support to get them successfully through a whole project. In jurisdictions where we do not have a program, people can hire us fee for service to help them successfully get through a project. And that can be just, that could be certainly the whole contingency of, of help from feasibility to design to permitting to construction and even lease up, or that can be special help at key moments. And so we like to say that we meet people wherever they are in the process, and people who tend to come to us, they try to find their way, and it tends to be when somebody gets stuck that, then they, find us when they're looking for somebody to help them through. So project feasibility, that's when we actually do a physical walk through the property and we look at all possibilities for creating ADUs, telling you all of your options, walking you through the process, the services that we offer to get you through, looking at all of your options and letting you know based on the site conditions and everything we see, knowing your goals and everything. This happens after a remote session with you. So we've already begun to do research on your property. We look at the budget that you've outlined. We've already kind of grounded you in basic numbers and timelines and things. And we look at all of your options and let you know based on what we know, what we think could be the best opportunity for you to move forward. So that's feasibility. Then we complete the feasibility report, and it's a more extensive report than you might have gotten just from space. We look at all your utility connections and kind of let you know, options as far as connections and upgrades that might be needed to allow you to do the project and that kind of thing. So, so next up, if you decide to move on from there, we would sit down and we would do an initial planning session, and that's when we'd walk you through the design and permitting portion of the project. And in design, we can offer people up to 3 referrals to vetted professionals. One of the hardest things for people in doing projects like this is just knowing what professionals to turn to. Like you don't know the space, you don't know what you're looking for. And so what we've done through our various programs is collect a cohort of excellent vetted professionals that we can refer to you. You can also bring professionals to us and we can help you vet them. We're always looking for new professionals, and just know that we're a like objective party. We don't have any connection to any particular professional. In other words, we can offer you referrals to professionals, but you will be contracting directly with professionals. We are not a middleman in the process. So this is like compare and contrast to ADU specialists who say, oh, we're your A to Z ADU professional. We'll take care of everything. And the companies that are doing that are different than what we're doing. We're overseeing, providing project management oversight on all that you're doing. We're not selling you any particular service provider or any particular product. So we don't have that kind of skin in the game. All we're here for is to make sure that you're successful. So anyway, so again, we can provide designers and architects to help you with a project, or we can vet the ones that you have. We help look through their contract documents. We make sure your interests are protected, and we even help you look through the schematic designs and the designs that come out, so to make sure that you are meeting all of your goals and that you're optimizing your opportunity to build, right? If you're taking the time and doing the work and spending the money to do a project this big, you want to make sure that you are taking full advantage of that opportunity. HelloADU helps people do that. So next slide. The permit management. So, we're all a little, scared of the permitting department, right? But we act like kind of a ambassador for the permitting department. We look through plans and make sure that they're complete. We want to minimize plan check comments. And we can also, if there is, a holdup for some reason, we can actually reach out and have on many occasions on the client's behalf to straighten up some possible misunderstanding that might be going on, or help people just have guidance going through the process. And sometimes like there are questions around comments that do come up, and knowing who to turn to get answers for that comment. And so a big part of our job is like directing you to the member of your team or the county team to help you get past a question or a hurdle. Anyway, so that's pretty much the help that we provide on getting you through permitting, which is always a bit, nerve-wracking. But yeah, it's great to find your way through and, doing it in as few rounds as humanly possible. Construction management. Again, this gets back to our ability to refer people. Again, we have a great contingent of contractors who are pre-vetted and everything. We are always looking for new contractors. We will help you vet any professional that you bring to the table. We will help you understand how to review a contractor's work, how to vet them, how to communicate. Again, we provide a lot of resources, tools for you to get through the process. We review their contract, make sure very important clauses are in place to protect your interests, and help you review bids, and just basically make sure that that contractor has everything that they need as far as insurance and bond and everything to make sure that they would be a very good partner to you in the process. And then we give you tools to help you go through the construction process, and again, can guide you. When any questions come up, we look through their contracts. We basically just hold your hand through that entire process. Yeah, and then give you tools to know how to track a project and how to be prepared for next steps. We can review invoices and answer any questions you have. And sometimes that is just a lot of the support. There's a lot of questions that come up, and I get the question a lot, should I ask this question? And so, just having that kind of hand-holding through a project is like, is this a reasonable question? Is this a dumb question? And I'll be, no, that, depending, that's a very good question. And to get the answer to the question, you want to ask this person. So, anyway, so construction, yes, very can be challenging, extremely exciting, but to see people successfully through the process, it helps to have some extra hand-holding often. And so we're always here to see people successfully through. So that's pretty much the services that Hello Housing offers. And we have some light, some information on what it means to be a landlord as well. So that's also a very important piece of the whole AD in the ADU world. So we can also offer some guidance on leasing. So that's it for the presentation that I have. I think, how am I doing for time? I guess not too bad. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions.
Quick question, it's Michelle. What is the typical time frame you experience once a person's made the decision and they get going pretty quickly? What is the typical time horizon to finish and have the ADU completed? I know, be it Marin, Sonoma, Napa, rules may be different, but you might have a better sense than the rest of us.
No, it's pretty standard jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and just know every project's different. So it's a really wide swath. We talked a little bit earlier about just grounding people in a general timeline of, up to 2 years, and sometimes it can take longer. But depending on the complexity of the project, it could take less time. But I would say if you're talking about something as complex as maybe an addition or a freestanding ADU, you should be prepared for somewhere between 15 to 24 months, right? So if everything goes swimmingly, you can get on in people's queue and you're responsive and you're making quick decisions yourself and you don't have multiple rounds of plan check comments, you might be able to get something through, completed in as little as 15 months, excuse me. But you should, I just think it's better to be conservative in estimates around these things, and you should be prepared for up to 2 years. Now, if you're doing an interior conversion remodel, especially if it's in existing living space, then that could reduce the timeline, considerably. And maybe, depending, there's so many factors, you could do it in as little as a year, depending. Yeah. But
Thank
that,
you.
yeah, for sure.
Hey, Rachel.
Yeah.
I wanted to check in with you. Thank you so much. This is so much great information. Right there at the beginning, we were kind of talking about now garages can be turned into junior units, if I understood you correctly.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if that garage has to be attached in order for that to happen, or can it be a freestanding unit?
Great question, Linda. Yes, that garage, it's converting space anywhere in the main residence. So if the garage is attached, you're golden. If it's not, it's going to be an ADU, has to be an ADU.
Okay. Okay. Could you talk a little more about what folks, pretty much everybody on the call has a septic system, to answer your earlier question. Um, so could you go back a little bit there at the beginning and tell us more about what you can do that doesn't trigger going through environmental?
Okay, so just now, I kind of love this piece about junior units. I was the one who sponsored the bill for junior units. And if you don't know me this well, like, to know me is to know that I'm in love with West Marin. And it was so important, like, I believe just so important to have a full spectrum of housing out there, right? So the people who work in your community can live in the community. And so that's why junior units, one of the reasons that junior units were born, because if you are repurposing existing living space in your home, and part of that living space incorporates a bedroom, an existing bedroom. And if that bedroom already has, an outside door and a way to get to that outside door, a deck to get in it, right? Then it is possible that it is considered a minor maintenance and repair. And it does not even, yep. And it does not even need an environmental health services permit. Yeah. Now, like, I think having a door in a bedroom in California is pretty darn common, but if you do not have that and you need to convert a window or something to, or add a door and, create a deck or whatever you need to actually get in that door, then if you just do that minor a remodel, and remember, we're still talking about converting at least an existing bedroom, but it could be an existing bedroom or two, and additional space up to 500 square feet. If you're going to add a door and a deck to that, in that case, it's considered a minor remodel, and it does require an environmental health services permit and an inspection report by a qualified provider. So they need to know just the condition of your septic. And if you have a functioning septic, then you should be good to go, like, right? But if your septic system is class 4, if it is not functioning or failing, then there might be some environmental health service hoops that you have to jump through to bring your system up to a standard to allow it to perform. Okay. And so next up, and just stop me when, when you cover what you need to know. But if you're creating a junior unit or an ADU out of habitable space within the existing residence as a bedroom swap. So you don't like the bedrooms, you can't do one of the bedrooms, and that's small enough. It's like the private side of your house, but you have a crazy big family room, right? That you would be happy to turn into a junior unit. You could possibly do a bedroom swap, which means you need to open up one of your bedrooms so that it couldn't easily be converted back into a bedroom, like, take out the wall or something like that, like really unbedroom it, if you will. And then convert this family room into a junior ADU that will now count as a bedroom. And it also says that this bedroom swap must affect less than 50% of the home for it to be considered, again, a minor remodel, requiring the septic permit and an inspection by a qualified provider.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you need me to keep going?
No, that's great. That's really good information. So people can really work a lot with the built environment that they have and still stay in their home. And yeah, so that's amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, like figuring out how to kind of work the system so that you don't go all the way to having to create a, class 1 or class 2 septic system, and avoiding costs in that manner. So, and again, I don't know if you're on the line, Linda, but I was just prefacing that these notes, they are a little bit dated, so you definitely want to confirm with environmental health services. And I just say, because a lot of people, they love the phone and they'll get on the phone and they'll, talk to somebody and they'll be like, oh, I heard. If you get some kind of actionable advice, right? Like they say, oh yeah, if you do a junior unit then, and you make it a swap, then absolutely you can do this, blah, blah, blah. You want to get that person's contact information and follow up with them with an email and get them to confirm in writing the answer to your question. Restate the question and state the answer and get them to confirm it in writing.
That's
Because
so smart. That's
yeah,
so smart. Yeah, to get a paper trail, essentially, email trail going. Yeah.
and also sometimes it's just easy for people to be a little, not have all the facts, have an assumption, or be a little bit flippant about an answer without diving in a little deeper. And just know it's always a little tricky. If you really want like actionable advice, they need a drawing. Like drawings are like the legal document in all of this game. And so if you have some kind of schematic plan or something that you can send them, so they have all the facts in front of them, in an email, so that they can look at it and really provide you with a, just a really comprehensive answer, with all the information they need to do that. Yeah.
So do you know when they do this inspection, if your septic pretty much passes as, so you're saying class 4 is bad. So class 3, is that okay? And class 2 is definitely much better, obviously.
I have to say, again, just for full transparency, I am not a septic
Uh,
expert. This is
yeah.
just bear with me here. But I believe if you're just repurposing rooms already in your house or doing this bedroom swap, so no additional needs from your septic system, right? Then if it is functioning even on a level class 3 basis, that if it is appropriately functioning, and sometimes they have a program to then have like a maintenance agreement to make sure it continues to function, like check every year to make sure it's functioning. As long as it's functioning, you should be able to move forward. This is the tricky part, because I know, again, when it comes to permitting, everybody's kind of biting their nails. If you decide not to move forward and you are talking with a qualified professional and they give you the news, let's say you have a class 3 and you decide not to move forward, you can just, put it on a shelf and forget the whole thing. But if your system gets tested and it's actively failing, they have a responsibility to report it to the jurisdiction. And I just think, that's something that people will want to be aware of, that there is that little, concern that, you might, but I mean, I would imagine if you have a system that's failing, you'd want to know that. But just a heads up there. Mhm. Yeah. And then one of the things I'm going to send, again, I'm going to send this septic guidance that we put together, because it literally gives you all the steps, and like, you'll see that there's like a collection of documents and links to kind of help you go down, follow the bouncing ball down the path. And so it's kind of a little flurry of documents to get the full picture, but it will give you kind of a step-by-step, what's your first step to figure out what you have, right? Which, is, reaching out to environmental health, and they have a public access viewer that has instructions where you can see what notes they have on your septic system. And if there's nothing there, you might be able to find something on microfiche. And if nothing's there, then you're looking at a system that has no permit history. And that is something that you will find out what your system is and how it's performing by working with a qualified professional to evaluate the system. And one of the, kind of not cheats, but one of the shortcuts that we talk about, because in all of this, it all comes down to the almighty dollar, you might say, right? And so now, you're talking about, I can give you some for what am I trying to say? So the ballpark number I gave you, $600 per square foot, is more specific to larger projects, right? When it comes to a conversion, there's no really giving a ballpark figure. I mean, it could involve anything. Conversion units can be more complicated in ways than, like a freestanding ground up construction, right? So I can't give you a ballpark figure on that, but on a conversion, because there's so many variables. But like the $600 per square foot, if you're talking about building bigger, can give you a general idea. If you can get through schematic design, you will have enough for a general contractor to at least give you a ballpark estimate based on a drawing. Again, this whole game is based on a drawing. If you're just describing things, or, that's not a real estimate. That's like throwing mud on the wall. It's just like, it's not based on any document. It's just somebody's guesstimate. So anyway, so getting through schematic design, you can get a general, a reasonable estimate on a project. When it comes to septic, if you can figure out what you already have, that's excellent. You can get a qualified professional to go through and test the system. There's an on-site evaluation that actually requires environmental health to come and be present. You could get the qualified professional to go ahead and do the evaluation, and then get a ballpark estimate on the system that they say is required for the ADU that you want to build. And then between the estimate for the system and the estimate for the ADU, get a pretty solid ballpark figure for the entire project, because that's, it's tricky, because that's the number that people need to know if they can move forward, right? And so,
Right.
yeah, so that's the way to kind of get a reason, like a solid ballpark on the septic system and a solid ballpark on the ADU you want to build, so if you have the resources to build. Yeah.
Yeah. I've found that your $600 figure is pretty accurate. I've done 3 in the last year and a half in Marin County. 2 fell under county jurisdiction, and the other one, we just got the building permit in Fairfax. And Fairfax was a very different beast. Not a beast, just a very different entity to work with. It was actually a really good experience with Fairfax.
Good. Yeah.
With county, I think you do have to have people who have experience. There was a lot of hoops that I really don't feel a homeowner could have jumped without me there, having the kind of experience that I have and knowing how to get through that process.
Yeah.
But overall, there was paperwork to do with Marin County, as far as the fire department, separately as far as the sewer district, which we don't have out in the valley, and then as well with the water department. Those were all separate applications that I needed to guide people through and get those done in the right order at the right time. And then with the energy calculations, Fairfax, we're converting a garage, and so it's detached, and that garage was probably built in the 20s, and it's a complete and total tear down. We're not sparing a shred of it because there's just not anything there we can hold on to. But Fairfax allowed us to call that a remodel. That's huge when you're doing energy calcs. That's just a huge, huge thing. It's all in the verbiage, and it's all in chasing down the right details and trying to get it in the right way. Like you said, don't say too much, but say enough to get where you need to go.
Yeah, and this idea, like, again, every jurisdiction is different, but this idea that you can tear something down, because, you know, if you wanted to turn that into anything else, they'd be like, oh, well, you know, if you leave one wall, like, or like a percentage of it, then you can build it in the same footprint, even though it's non-conforming. But a lot of jurisdictions are saying that if you're rebuilding an ADU, you can do a total tear down and build it back, which makes so much sense because, you know, you just get a better end product, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We needed a seismic qualified foundation. We're going taller because the thing had really low ceilings. So yeah, you know, I'm all in favor of keeping as much as possible, but in this particular case, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot to work with for ADUs in the valley, in that we have a lot of folks who, you know, their kids have moved out, they're rattling around in a much larger space, and could probably use having some folks living on the property that maybe they don't want in their day-to-day lives. You don't want to, you know, run into each other in the living room every time you walk in there. But
Okay.
yeah, I think there's a lot to think about here, a lot to work with.
I agree. I feel like in coastal communities, and certainly, you know, the valley and beyond, conversion units are the greatest opportunity that you have. And, you know, people don't realize, I used to have all the statistics on that, but it's something like 83% of the homes in Marin County are occupied by only one or two people. In most cases, it's
Wow.
living in a single bedroom. It's some insane, maybe it's 76, but you get it. I mean, it's some insane number, right? And that's, again, what got me on this, you know, quest to, you know, create junior units. I had no idea that anybody was working on ADUs. And I was like, my God, like, we have housing right under our roofs. But this is another place where it's really good to work with a excellent team, like, you know, like you, Linda, like, you know, qualified professional to help you mastermind creating a space that really works efficiently, that really takes into consideration the level of privacy that you're looking for and everything. I mean, it really is an art form to kind of reshape our homes into shared campuses. And so yeah, and so I completely agree that that's our greatest opportunity. And again, well, and now, just because things keep changing, you have not only junior units as an opportunity, but it looks like conversion units as well, as, you know, if you can navigate the septic requirements, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, another hurdle is installing the fire sprinklers. So if the home itself does not have fire sprinklers in general, when you're doing the ADU, if you're converting existing space, which I've done under a house, because the houses built on hills quite often have really huge crawl spaces underneath. So we converted that, didn't have to put in fire sprinklers, and did the same thing under a garage and didn't have to do fire sprinklers. But in Fairfax, we ended up we were required to put fire sprinklers in the garage conversion that I was talking about. And that had to do with the fact that the fire hydrant, which was right across the street, had a low, is it PSI? Yeah, the hydrant didn't have a strong push on it with the water. So because that was below 1,000, it was 750.
Yeah.
I put fire sprinklers in.
So yeah,
Just the thing.
let's talk about that for a minute, because that's a great thing to bring up. Like, that and parking are also kind of like a big issue, right? So when it comes to fire sprinklers, just know that, well, what the state law says is if they're not in the main house, they don't have to be in the ADU. Okay. Well, that said, fire, like the fire department has dominion, right? Because when it comes to health and safety, they can say, because of this or this or this, in this situation, sprinklers are going to be required. And then and just be aware that that has implications often on the size of the water main. So, it's a pretty big ask when that is required. And sometimes it can be pressure at the hydrant, like you were saying, Linda, but also when things are sitting particularly far back on the property. So they tend to draw the line at 150 square feet, which is, I guess, standard hose length that you have to be able to get to the back of an ADU. And if you don't have that to be able to build an ADU, they'll sometimes say, well, you can do it if you provide fire sprinklers. So, so all of this stuff, they're trying to make it as straightforward as possible, but there are still caveats, and health and safety reigns. So, when it becomes health and safety trumps everything. And so that's when the fire department has license to make further requests. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've had the fire assemblies, which is what you call where the unit below the house, the ceiling, and then the floor above, those are two separate units when you build an ADU. So they'll call that a fire assembly between the two. Sometimes it's a building department requiring those, and I kind of think maybe they're stepping out of their jurisdiction when they do stuff like that, but I don't know, with Marin County, I don't know how you fight some of that.
Yeah.
Because there were times where I've been asked to do that and it didn't seem necessary, but we came up with the detail anyway, just to get the building permit.
Yeah.
And then with Fairfax, it seemed much more reasonable, is that they were just looking at wildfire and looking for exterior walls to have, at least a 2 to 4 hour assembly, which is different than the 1 hour.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all doable. You get there.
Yeah, it's the way that they, are, viewing it. Like, so this is the difference again between junior units and ADUs. Junior units are not considered another unit. Like, they actually, it's a little confusing, but anyway, for fire purposes, they're not considered a separate unit. And so you do not have to have a fire assembly wall in between a junior unit and the residence, right? But then, as Linda was saying, when it comes to doing an ADU and you do have a fire assembly, and let's say that ADU is on the bottom, well, if sure, it makes sense that you need a firewall between, but to what extent do you need like other firewalls to prevent like the residents from catching, say, from the outside or something like that? And so this is when it gets into like more of the minutia of what jurisdictions can possibly call out. And, it's navigating whether or not that's reasonable. And do you have any pushback, and is pushback worth it in situations? So, so it can, it's complicated and it can get muddy. But yeah, having a great team, obviously, like you, Linda, is so, key to getting through successfully.
I wasn't trying to sell myself. Sorry, guys. I was just trying to bring my experience to the palette here. I don't want to dominate the conversation. Does anybody else have questions?
I say bravo for that whole conversation just now. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Rachel. I think I came to the first session when you first came to the planning group and you started introducing the whole idea of JADUs to us. I wish that there had been more JADUs built, but I can understand, we've come to understand why it's so very difficult. But I wonder from your experience, whether there are any jurisdictions that are using alternatives to septic systems for waste management, and whether Marin County or elsewhere, and whether that's a feasible possibility. And the other is, there are some areas or some people that are saying, well, I'm using so much less water than would be actually required. So it shouldn't be determined by the number of bedrooms, but by water usage. And have you aware of any situations where that is, presents alternatives to what we're dealing with right now?
Yeah, I wish I could say I had, more good news. I know that pilots have been run out in Bolinas and,
Yeah.
yeah, and yet I have not seen, and since I'm not currently involved in Marin, like I don't know to like where those pilots stand, if they're considering lowering the daily use. It certainly seems that the jurisdictions are still going by bedroom, even if they're allowing for, lower water use. But besides that, I really don't have a lot, just because, I mean, while I work with I work with the septic issue, I'm just not it's not my main focus, and I'm not a septic expert. And I can't say that I do know of anybody using alternative systems. No, I mean, environmental health services seems to be just a real difficult issue all the way around. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I wish I could be more helpful.
Yeah, I have a question. When you were going through the various types of stick-built, modular and so on, and I was wondering, we all probably are familiar now with the Amazon houses that you can order, and anywhere from $8,000 or $9,000 on up, but not more than about 65,000. Reminds me of the old Sears catalog that I used to hear about, people getting their houses. And so I wondered with that, or with say a container ship, a container thing that you can bring on and people convert those. And you had mentioned that each type of thing, of course, has its own considerations, but I wondered what type of consideration problems would be inherent in that kind of a sort of instant tiny house that you wouldn't face in a stick-built or a modular.
Hold on one second. I'm just dropping something into the chat because I'm going to send you a link for HelloADU. This is our blog, and I just wrote an article about prefab that, I think it would be, just valuable to read. And so you can just pick it up here, but I'll definitely speak to this as well. Here you go. And I have to make sure that I drop some of these other links I have in there before you guys get off. But there has been a tremendous amount of hype around other modalities like panelized and prefab. And I just, we've worked with many a homeowner who has looked at or started down the path or is working with a company going this route. And there are complexities involved with it that people just don't know. I always joke because I live in Sonoma now. And I don't know if you guys have ever been up to Sonoma, but General Vallejo has his home here. General Vallejo is the general who basically gave California to the United States. He wanted his people to be free. And so he was so excited about being an American that he wrote a letter to an architect in Boston and ordered 2 kit homes and had them sailed, around South America, and they landed in the bay, and he built them. And so when I first went to General Vallejo's house, I'm like expecting this Adobe number, and I'm like, where is it? Is it behind this? Like, whose house is this? Like, what in the world am I looking at? And then I realized that this is what he did, and I was like, that's amazing. So there is absolutely nothing new about panelized and prefabricated construction, but it has gotten a real hype because of the ADU space. So the reason I say that is because there are a lot of people coming into the space, and there are a lot of promises out there about what prefab can do for you. And in very particular situations, panelized and prefab can be helpful. But just know that it also creates complexities. As my boss always used to say, there's no free lunch in construction. Sorry, I'm laughing because Linda and I worked together a while, so like I know she's getting a giggle out of that. Anyway, and so there's issues involved and complexities involved with prefab that you do not have in stick-built construction, right? And there is dual permitting paths, and just know that restaurants and construction companies have the highest failure rate of any business anywhere. Now, throw in prefabricated construction, and you take a construction company and you add transportation, mass marketing, right? And doing factory work as well as site work. So that's now 4 components as opposed to the traditional path. That's a lot of transition points. That's a lot of details to know in addition to just what it takes to build a home. So just know, again, I'm a LEED accredited designer. I had my whole moment where I was like, I'm in love with the idea of prefab. And I am just living the realities of prefab. And again, while they can be a good solution, they ultimately might bring down your costs. I am not necessarily seeing, because of the complexities involved with them reducing the timeline and not even really necessarily bringing down costs. There's complications around them again. And just know, I spent a couple of years anyway, rebuilding, like doing fire rebuilds in Sonoma. It was a wild and dynamic environment. And just know we're in a burgeoning industry. Like ADUs are new. The whole industry is like, ooh, ADUs, this is the new frontier. And so you have people pouring into this space with, with dollar signs in their eyes, like, I'm going to like solve the housing issue. And they're talking about solving it through a business model that very few people have survived in over 5 years. So before you purchase a prefab ADU or go with a panelized solution, there are a lot of questions to ask. We help people know what questions to ask and go about asking those questions. Yeah, so it's just, there's a lot of hype out there, and I just want to really ground you in the realities of incredibly complex business model. And just know that you will have a product on your property, and that could be state permitted, or it could be federally permitted. So let's say you one day want to put a door in that bedroom. You need to go to the state or the Fed to get the permit to allow for that change. And there's a warranty associated with construction, right? It's a wait and see if that prefab company is going to be around when that warranty date comes up. So these are just some of the things to consider, when you're really looking at a prefab company. Like there's some great products out there, some gorgeous products. And a lot of people are talking about the low end products, but actually there's really awesome high-end products. I mean, you're adding complexity in dollars, but you get like an amazing product, right? But just like people have this idea, oh, it's faster and it's cheaper and it's simpler. No, it's not. So just know that when you're considering the prefab option. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I wonder, did I answer your question completely enough?
No.
What else do you need to know? I'm happy to go on.
I mean, I'm sitting here right now in my prefab office that was
Awesome.
from summer. I can't remember the last time because I've had it for about 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
a company in Canada.
Awesome, yeah.
Which
No,
is
there's great products out there. That's fantastic, yeah.
beautiful. And we live in a dome house that we built ourselves, designed and built ourselves. So I mean,
I love that.
I am somewhat familiar with that.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
I'm also
Yeah.
thinking about container units, which come,
With their own
they're
complexity.
pretty solid if you have one that hasn't been.
Yeah, but there's no permitting code to actually see that through. So that's a whole nother level of complexities. And I mean, I was on the board of the alternative building board in, Marin County for a while. And, unless they're doing some kind of container that's state or Fed approved. But again, that's a whole nother level of complexities. Yeah. So, and there's nothing wrong with these things. Like there's great products out there. I just don't want anyone to buy into their cheaper, faster, or necessarily better, or simpler. There's a lot of questions to ask. But yeah, absolutely some gorgeous products out there and some companies that have been in it for the long haul too. You just want to make sure that, you talk to the people who've worked with them before and, find out how their process went. You want to make sure that they have not only good site builders, right? Like they can coordinate with great site builders who they know and they have vetted, as well as GCs that come and do the final closeout work on their modules, right? So it's just, it's a different way of building. And so there's just more complexities to it. And so there's a lot of questions to ask is the point. Is there any other question that you have around it, Nancy?
No, I was just curious really more about the differences between the two. I mean, living in and experiencing certainly one type or two types. I was just curious now with this whole situation, but I'll go read your blog post and
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, hopefully with the finished product, you would have the same experience living in it. Yeah, so that wouldn't necessarily be an issue. And, assuming it's, brilliantly built and everything. But also the jury's still out on how a prefab will ultimately, how it will retain its value over time compared to stick built. And I don't have the answer to that either. I'm just throwing out things that people should be, paying attention to, when they make a decision. Anyway, I'm gonna drop.
I'll
Yeah.
say something about, well, you dropped those, Rach, on the containers. I was working with the ROP group with the high school kids at not Santa Fe, Redwood High School, and they were given a container. And what we found is that we had to build it out from the inside. So maybe there's containers that have a taller height. Their container was 8 foot, and it seems like most of them I see are 8 foot, but maybe there's some that go to 10 foot. But what we had to do was build it out from the inside because we wanted to keep that metal exterior as our siding. So that brought the ceiling down because we had to meet the insulation level that we needed to get to. So to insulate the walls and insulate the ceiling and insulate the floor, which the floor, I think we got away with putting it on a slab foundation and insulating the slab. So it does bring it in some. My daughter was in Austin to go to college. So when I go down there, we see some of their innovative construction, and there were some sites that were built with containers, and there are ways to stack them in these really amazing ways to where they're interesting and opening them up with some windows and stuff. But I'm pretty darn tall. I'm a big gal. So that low ceiling just kind of got to me. So, but that's not true of everybody.
Linda, you were working on this project as an ADU, or was it just like as a?
They were building it out. Yeah, it was an ADU.
Cool.
Yeah, it was going to be Oh, was it an ADU? I think it was a multi-use. They were trying to get away with it as a office space, but they were including a bathroom in there.
Oh, okay.
And then a sink outside of the bathroom. So it must be more like the junior ADU because it didn't have a full kitchen.
Oh, okay. And did you permit it under like a standard local permitting process?
So what the kids were doing, and then there were fellow contractors that had volunteered, and I actually signed up for the class, so I was one of the kids. We were auctioning it off. So what ultimately happened in the auction, I don't know. I'll have to follow up with Tom Eller. I don't know if you guys know Tom. He's over there in Whitaker. And he's a teacher at Redwood High.
So interesting. So it didn't necessarily have a permit yet. They were going to wait to figure out how to actually.
We were building it out. Yeah. So it hadn't gotten to that phase. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. But every year they build a shed. That's what they've done in the past. So
Yeah.
they'll build a shed and auction it off to support the construction. The construction class that's offered afterwards for the ROP.
It's so cool. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Going through that. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like Nancy's point is that for your home, obviously you found a really good company out of Canada and, that worked out great. But there's other companies that are fly by night. And it's true of all industries. When you're making that big of an investment, you just have to be careful, like with anything.
Well, because we had built our own house and acted as our own contractor on it before, we'd kind of been through the process, and we know we do builders to work with, and
you brought a lot of knowledge to the plate to know what you were getting into. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any other questions for me? I don't have to hold you guys up anymore. I don't think so. I think to Linda. Yeah, I'll send the septic guidance, these 2 documents that I have, and it's full of links, and I'll send the associated documents because it refers to documents in it to give people just the basic building blocks. And again, it's a little dated, so you just want to confirm. But yeah, feel free to just post it, so that people can get their hands on this. Somebody had a good snicker because this was an attempt to simplify the process, and then they look through the septic guidance and they're like, what? So it's, it's involved. It's a lot, but hopefully you'll find the documents helpful. Thank you again.